Have you ever heard the stories? The whispers from small towns, the forgotten lines in old newspapers. Stories of people who walk through the gates of a cemetery to visit their loved ones and simply vanish. No trace, no witnesses. They are just swallowed by the silence and the stones. We dismiss them as urban legends, as ghost stories to frighten children. But what if they're not? What if a cemetery is not just a place of rest, but a gateway, a place where the veil between worlds is thin, and the lonely dead are not content to stay on their side? Tonight, you will hear a story from a man who walked through that gateway. A man who, for one terrifying night, became a plaything for the forgotten. He is one of the few who has ever returned. Do not change the video.
Adam, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me today.
Thank you for having me, Sam. I'll be honest, I'm still not sure this is a good idea. Talking about it.
I completely understand, and please know that you can stop at any time. The reason I reached out is that your story is unique. We get a lot of accounts on this show, but the details you shared in your email were incredibly specific and, frankly, deeply unsettling. For my listeners, could you set the scene for us? Tell us what happened that night you decided to go to St. Giles Cemetery.
Right, St. Giles. It was the anniversary of my sister's passing, Lily. She would have been 10 years old that day. She died from leukemia a few years prior. It was a very hard time for my family, for me. I felt, guilty, like I hadn't been there for her enough, that I was the older brother and I should have protected her. It's not rational, I know, but grief isn't. I wanted to visit her grave, but I didn't want the whole family there. I didn't want the sad looks, the pats on the back. I just wanted a quiet moment, just me and her. But I had to work a double shift that day, and by the time I was free, it was already past 10 p.m. I knew the cemetery gates were officially locked at sunset, but I went anyway. I guess I thought if I just hopped the low stone wall, I could have my moment and leave. No one would ever know.
So you arrived late at night. What was your first impression when you got there? Did anything feel off?
Everything felt off from the very beginning. When I pulled up, the main wrought iron gates, which are always chained and padlocked at night, were standing slightly ajar, just open enough for a person to slip through. My first thought was that a groundskeeper had forgotten, but that never happens. They're meticulous there. I should have turned around right then. My gut was screaming at me that this was a bad idea, that this was some kind of invitation. But I ignored it. I just wanted to see Lily. I parked my car, grabbed the small bouquet of flowers I'd bought, and stepped through the gates. The moment I was inside, the silence hit me. It wasn't a normal, peaceful nighttime quiet. It was a heavy, oppressive silence, like a thick blanket. All the sounds from the road, the crickets, the wind, everything just stopped. It was like I had stepped into a vacuum.
You mentioned in your email a local legend about St. Giles. Do you think that was on your mind, perhaps influencing what you felt?
Absolutely, and that's why I tried to rationalize it at first. My grandmother used to tell me stories about St. Giles, about a section at the far back of the cemetery near the woods. It's called the Orphans Ground. In the late 1800s, there was a workhouse for children in the town that burned down. Dozens of orphans died, and because they had no families and no money, the church refused to bury them in the consecrated part of the cemetery, so they were just buried in a mass grave, in unmarked plots right on the edge of the property. The legend says their spirits are lonely, that they're still children and they just want to play. But their They're not normal. They say the orphans get jealous of visitors who have families, who have flowers left on their graves. And sometimes they try to keep visitors from leaving. They want new playmates. I always thought it was just a spooky story, a way to keep kids from messing around in the cemetery at night.
So you're inside the gates. The silence is unnatural. What happened next?
I started walking the path towards Lily's grave. It's in a newer section, about a 5-minute walk from the entrance. I had my phone's flashlight on, and the beam was cutting through the dark. It was cold, colder than it should have been for that time of year. I remember seeing my breath mist in front of me. That's when I heard the first sound. It was faint, just on the edge of my hearing. A little kid's giggle. I stopped dead. I swept my light across the headstones into the trees. Nothing. I told myself it was the wind, an animal, my own mind playing tricks on me because of the stories. I kept walking, faster this time. I reached Lily's grave. It's a simple, polished granite headstone with a little lamb carved on top. I knelt down, cleared away some of the dead leaves, and placed the flowers in the small vase. I started talking to her, just quietly, telling her I was sorry I was late, telling her about my new job, just connecting. And as I was talking, I saw movement in my periphery. To my left, in the direction of the old part of the cemetery, the Orphans Ground. I turned my head, but it was gone. It was small and fast, a shadow darting between two large headstones. Again, I tried to rationalize it. A fox, a raccoon, but it didn't feel like an animal. It felt like a child playing hide and seek.
So you've heard a giggle. You've seen a shadow. At this point, your internal alarm must be going off.
It was screaming, but I felt like I couldn't leave yet. I hadn't finished my conversation with Lily. It felt disrespectful to just run away. So I turned back to her grave, and that's when the horror really started. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining things. Sitting right on top of Lily's headstone, right next to the flowers I had just placed, was a single, perfect, gray-streaked marble. The old-fashioned kind. It wasn't there a second ago. I was staring right at that spot. It had just appeared. My blood went cold. I slowly stood up, backing away from the grave. This wasn't a trick of the light. This was a physical object, a child's toy. I scanned the darkness around me, my flashlight beam shaking violently. "Who's there?" I called out, and my voice sounded thin and stupid in the crushing silence. And that's when the whispering started. It came from all around me. Not words I could understand, just the soft, sibilant sound of children whispering to each other. From behind the tombstones, from the branches of the old oak trees, from the darkness itself.
My God. So you're surrounded. What did you do?
I ran. I abandoned the flowers, my sister, everything. I just turned and bolted back towards the main gate. The path I had walked in on seemed longer now, twisted. The headstones looked like crooked teeth in the dark. The whispering followed me, keeping pace. It started to sound playful, mocking. I could hear the sound of small feet running on the grass just beyond the reach of my flashlight. And then my light started to flicker. It would die for a second, plunging me into absolute blackness, and in that second of darkness, I would hear the footsteps get closer. Then the light would flicker back on, and I would see a small, shadowy figure standing on the path ahead of me, only for it to vanish the next second.
You saw them? You actually saw them. Can you describe what they look like?
They didn't look like normal children. They were like silhouettes cut from shadow, but they had faces, pale, smudged faces with dark hollows where their eyes should be. They wore old, tattered, workhouse-style clothes, and they were just standing there, watching me run. It was a game to them. They were herding me. I realized I wasn't running towards the gate anymore. I was running deeper into the cemetery. Every path I took, every time I thought I was getting closer to the entrance, I would round a corner and find myself back in an older, more decayed section. I was lost, completely and utterly lost. I ended up in a clearing I didn't recognize, and I knew instantly where I was. It was the Orphans Ground. The graves were just small, unmarked fieldstones, and in the center of the clearing, sitting on the ground, was my own backpack, which I had left at the foot of Lily's grave. They had brought it here for me. They wanted me to stay. The whispering stopped, and a single, clear child's voice spoke from the darkness right behind me.
Will you be our big brother?
I screamed. I didn't even know I was screaming until I felt the hot tears on my face. I left the backpack. I just ran. Blindly. I didn't follow a path. I just crashed through the undergrowth, branches whipping at my face. My only guide, the faint, distant orange glow of the streetlights beyond the cemetery walls. I could hear them behind me, not just whispering anymore. They were laughing, a chorus of cold, joyless children's laughter. I could feel their presence, like a physical cold spot chasing me. I finally broke through a line of hedges and saw the stone wall that bordered the property. The main gate was 100 yards to my left. I sprinted for it. I was 10 feet away, my lungs burning, my legs screaming, when I felt it. A small, ice-cold hand grabbed my ankle. I fell hard, scraping my hands and face on the gravel path. I kicked out wildly, screaming, and whatever was holding me let go. I scrambled the last few feet on my hands and knees, throwing myself through the open gates and onto the asphalt of the road outside. I lay there, gasping, crying, and looked back. The cemetery was silent again. The gates were still open. There was nothing there. It was just an empty, quiet graveyard under the moon.
After a long pause, his voice now subdued and shaken. Adam, that's one of the most terrifying things I have ever heard. What happened after that? Did you have any proof?
When I got home, after sitting in my car for an hour just shaking, I finally got out. My jeans were torn at the ankle where it had grabbed me, and when I took them off, I had a bruise. It was the perfect, small, pale outline of a child's handprint wrapped around my ankle. It stayed there for over a week before it faded. I took pictures. That was my proof. The next day, the cemetery gates were chained and padlocked, just like they always are. My backpack is still in there, somewhere. I'm never going back for it.
Adam's story is a chilling reminder that some legends are not just stories. They are warnings. He walked into a place of sorrow and was lucky to escape. He believes the spirits of those lonely children saw in him a grieving brother, and in their tragic, twisted way, tried to make him their own. He believes that if he hadn't run, he would have become just another story, another whisper on the wind in St. Giles Cemetery. Have you ever had a terrifying or unexplainable experience in a cemetery? We want to hear your true story in the comments below. And if you appreciate these deep dives into true, chilling encounters, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content from the darkness. Thank you for listening.
Prince of Darkness.